Folks, this is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
I had the best words. Tolerized. I know words.
Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation.
But there's no better word than stupid.
Anonymous, really anonymous.
I'm very highly educated.
One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
I had the best words.
God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Big massive dumps.
The Nation, Waldorf Nation, hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a great show for you today. Lots of fun stuff. We've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz having a little bit of problems, at least money problems with their little tour. That's fun. I think you'll enjoy that story. Charlie Kirk, of course, says more dumb things. Not surprising. We got a Trump fan that really shows us the problem with trying to get people vaccinated. We've got MAGAcoin. You're going to love that. And then Jesse Waters has some advice on dealing with climate change. Interesting. Fun times. All right. So, like I said, good show, fun stories. We'll dive into it. Before I do, please like and share the stream. Very helpful if you do so. You don't even know. You don't know how helpful it is, but it is incredibly helpful to like and share the stream. Please, feed that algorithm. It's hungry. The algorithm's very, very hungry. You're here for the hot takes. We don't do hot takes here. We do some very lukewarm takes. That's what it is. Maybe warmed up in the microwave. Okay, anyway. Let's, dive into it. Let's just go. You might be aware that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has been on a joint fundraising tour with an accused sex trafficker, Matt Gaetz. So currently under investigation for sex trafficking a minor. So wonderful, right? So I don't need to mention that they are, of course, lightning rod pro-Trump conservatives. There's a lot of attention paid to them. Obviously, one is a accused sex trafficker, and the other one says insane, ridiculous things. So now you must think, well, they're going on this fundraising tour, right? They must be drowning in cash. Well, are they? Apparently not. So, in fact, according to FEC filings, not only did they fail to raise a significant amount of money in political terms, but they actually ended up spending about 4 times as much as they ended up raising. Oops. So, the Daily Beast explains, since Gaetz and Greene kicked off their joint fundraising committee with a May 7th event at the Villages in Central Florida, their campaigns and joint fundraising committee have posted a combined loss of $342,000. And according to recent filings with the FEC, that joint fundraising effort, Put America First, only reported about $59,345.54 in total contributions. Sad. So now you might think, wow, $59,000. What, for like one event? Because that's generally how much, politicians, Republicans and Democrats, usually raise from like one or two events. No, apparently not. They've went to a ton of events and ain't nobody giving. In fact, they spent on all these different high-profile events a total of $287,036.19. So they held these events and raised very little money. They're actually in the hole by more than $225,000. I thought Republicans were good at raising money. Weird. Fail. Sad. Baby. But there's more. It turns out some of the money actually came from Green and Gaetz. So they put each about $150,000 apiece from their own campaigns into the fundraising committee. So now they're both losing money. And they've raised money. And by the way, so this is what's interesting, right? So they have actually raised all their money from small dollar donors. Now, I actually think that's great. Yes, I like the idea of politicians raising money from small dollar donors. That's the way you should do it. Bernie Sanders, of course, famously showed that you could raise enough money for an entire campaign to try to take on the most entrenched establishment candidate back in 2016. So there is a ton of power in raising money from small dollar donors. I absolutely love it. Now, the problem is, there's not a lot of small dollar donors on the conservative side. Turns out most Americans are actually pretty progressive when it comes to their views. And they're not giving money to conservative candidates. In fact, the Republican Party happens to be pretty unpopular with average Americans, with regular working class people. And because that's mainly the Republicans are the party of the rich. They give money to rich people. They wholly support rich people, policies that support rich people, and of course get most of their money from rich people. So if you're a conservative who is trying to raise money from small dollar donations, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a bad time. All right. And so ironically, the people, the small dollar donations they're actually getting from the American people, from regular people, they're giving it to people who don't give a damn about them, funny enough. So now, this has been an expensive, disastrous tour and an epic fail of a fundraiser, but there is one winner here, okay? And pretend to be shocked when I tell you this. It happens to be Matt Gaetz' PR firm, the Logan Circle Group. As the Beast explains, the campaign hired that group in early April, and they made off with more than $1 million in the second quarter of 2021. While the majority of the money did come from Gaetz, about $125,000 over the course of a month, the firm nudged past the $1 million mark with the $250,000 it received from Put America First. Those payments, nearly 90% of the committee's total budget, were for, quote, event production and management, according to FEC filings. Disaster. A Gaetz campaign spokesperson told the Daily Beast that all donations raised in the tour had gone to Put America First, and asked again if that was correct. The spokesperson said it was. Furthermore, they said, upon double-checking with the campaign finance team, the spokesperson would only say that, quote, our filings speak for themselves. Yes, they do. And what did they say? What did he say? Well, nothing good. In fact, individually, Gaetz and Green raised about $1.34 million and $1.31 million in the second quarter of 2021, respectively. It's a lot of money, right? But that's actually a lot less than they did in the first quarter. In fact, Gaetz slipped from $1.82 million in the first months of the year, his personal best. He also spent $1.95 million along the way, the majority of it on the fundraising, and of course his public relations scramble to push back on those on that investigation for alleged sex trafficking. Green actually did worse. Now I know they article after article. Oh my God, Marjorie Taylor Greene is raising boatloads of money. Well, it turns out not as much. In fact, Green actually came about $1.9 million short of her $3.2 million first quarter haul. And after expenses, including travel and fundraising costs, she actually closed the second quarter with about a $300,000 net gain. She had ended the first quarter up $1.8 million. So in fundraising terms, and I know there's a lot of money, but fundraising terms, that's a disaster. That's really fucking bad. And so here's a lesson, okay? Conservatives, bad with money, bad at fundraising from anyone who is not an incredibly wealthy donor. And so, again, that's important, right? Because who ends up doing a fundraising tour and ends up in the hole? Who does that? Who does that? Somebody who's really, really bad at this. And again, it's not just that, but it's also people who maybe try to raise this money, but then scrape some, some off the top for themselves through like a fundraising firm or whatever, or not fundraising, sorry, but like a PR firm or personal expense, whatever, right? Or of course, there's the other thing where it's just people who are completely and totally incompetent. I'll leave it to you to figure that out. That said, a Gaetz spokesperson who was not affiliated with the Logan Circle Group defended the fundraising performance, saying this, quote, "Despite an endless stream of lies from the media, Congressman Gaetz only continues to be among the most prodigious fundraisers in Congress and is the only Republican who doesn't accept donations from federal lobbyists or PACs." Now, again, you're going to have a problem with that as a Republican because I pointed out before, your base is not working class people. Your base is rich people. The people that give the most money to Republicans is rich people. And to be fair, look, Democrats as well. But like, they're running, and here's the thing about, Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They claim to be populist Republicans, populist conservatives. The only thing is, their populism isn't really populism. It's just basically coded in sometimes outright racism and xenophobia. And so, there's that. Their populism doesn't have anything to do with economic populism. I mean, it doesn't have to do with giving health care to people or anything like that. No, it's just, I want to say the N-word, essentially. And not only that, but, look, a lot of the so-called populist conservatives also do things like Facebook, mail scams, like, again, Donald Trump, the king of scammers. I remember doing a story during the Trump campaign of, leading up to 2020, where people who had donated to Trump once got signed up to automatically, even though they didn't check the box or do anything like that, ended up getting signed up for massive recurring donations that were draining their bank accounts. It's all about screwing people over. It's all about taking their money and then doing God knows what with it. And so, now there's one more thing that might have sunk their tour. Cancel culture. And specifically, venues canceling on them because of public outrage. And after the launch of the villages, the media had also largely ignored their stops as well. So you had the media, it's like, don't care. Why should they? I'm actually generally in favor of the media ignoring their stops. And the only reason I'm doing this story is so I can make fun of them because they suck. But again, the canceling events, okay? So now, here's the thing. I'm actually okay with them doing events in different places, or generally would be okay with that, right? The thing is, one person is an accused sex trafficker. Okay, that's not good. The other one says outrageous and sometimes completely batshit insane things that put people at risk. Now, if you're a hotel or a venue or somewhere, you don't want to be affiliated with that, do you? Not really. But the more important thing here is we're dealing with a pandemic. Yes, it is a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. Okay. Well, the crowds who go and see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are likely to be unvaccinated. They're the ones who are dying the most from COVID-19. So they are a safety risk. And so you don't want to hold these gigantic super spreader events, especially if imagine if you're the owner of a venue, a hotel, and you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz trying to bring in a crowd of people, 100 plus. And they're all that unvaccinated, or most of them, and don't wear masks either. You're like, no, dog, I want to pass on that. Thanks. I know. Cancel culture, right? Overall, though, what a disastrous fundraising tour, right? And for me, I actually think it's funny to watch them light their money on fire. Or I should say their fans' money on fire, because it generally isn't a lot of their own, but still fun. Have fun in the rest of that failed tour. All right. They are dying of COVID. It's true. It's very true. Pandemics are still pandemics. Petri dishes can encourage viruses to mutate. Yes, it's very, very true. Very, very true. All right. That said, let's go to Charlie Kirk. No, sorry, no. Go to the Trump fan. Let's do that first. A hospitalized Trump supporter was recently interviewed by CBS News, and that interview, of course, is going viral because of some of the things that he said. Take a look.
Here I am, recovering, getting out of here finally tomorrow. Am I going to get a vaccine? No.
Why not?
Because there's too many issues with these vaccines.
This father, former baseball coach, small business owner, and hunter, caught COVID, and then he developed pneumonia.
Before you got sick, if you would have had a chance to get the vaccine and prevent this, would you have taken the vaccine?
Nope.
So you'd have gone through this?
I'd have gone through this, yes, sir. Don't shove it down my throat. That's what's local, state, federal administration is trying to do, is shove it down your throat.
What are they shoving, the science?
No, they're shoving the fact that that's their agenda. The agenda is to get you vaccinated.
Oh my God. Don't shove it down my throat. I don't want to shove it down my throat. All right. Hold on there, buddy. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I want to start with the agenda. Oh yeah, the government agenda. What's their agenda? To shove things down my throat. Okay. As far as that's concerned, the agenda is to get people vaccinated. He's absolutely right about that. Nailed it. Congratulations. That's literally the agenda. You got it. You figured that all by yourself, that the government during a pandemic wants to end the pandemic, wants to get people vaccinated to end the pandemic. Wow. Incredibly astute, sir. The reason why, of course, is look, the pandemic's bad for business. This is not exactly altruistic here. So understand, yes, the vaccine absolutely could save your life and it protect your family. I got vaccinated. I suggest everybody do so. If you haven't already, I understand hesitancy, but please do so. You can protect yourself, protect your family, and it's just generally a good thing to do. But as far as the government's concerned, I don't think I really don't think that matters too much to the government. What matters is, to the government, is getting things back to normal as soon as possible. Meaning, of course, get people back to work. Get people back to work. The corporations will start making money again. The commerce will, continue or resume back to normal. Tax revenues are going to get going. And so all that stuff, right? Restarting the economic engine. That's really the forefront of what governments are concerned about. Okay? As far as politicians are concerned, well, politicians, yes, they may also care about you and your family, but also ending a pandemic, good for your resume. Or at least, re-election. Like, hey, I dealt with COVID-19. I got money to the community, and then I got the community back up and running, and I got you back to your job, and all that stuff. It looks good for re-election. Okay? So there's that. And look, let me add on to it. You want to stop hospitals from being slammed with COVID, right? With COVID patients. That's generally a good thing when they're not slammed with COVID patients. It means they can serve other people. Makes sense. So there's all that. That's the agenda. That's it. Now, of course, you ask right-wingers, and they're going to talk about how it's a communist plot to microchip you in preparation for Agenda 2030 when the lizard people come out, turn Christian men into women while femboys line up to punch God in the face. That's it. That's what, or whatever, like, crazy nutso thing that they're going to come up with next. Okay? Conservative media is a cancer in the United States. It's not even because they're conservative. They're not even conservative. I think, no, so-called conservative media is now just conspiracy theories and reactionary punditry. And that's it. There's no discussion about a conservative way to fix healthcare or to lower the price of prescription drugs. No discussion about dealing with pollution or climate change, or as I'm going to show you later on in the show, their solution to climate change is just adapt to it. Whatever. No, they're not conservative. It's all this reactionary bullshit. That's it. Or they talk about critical race theory, or they lie about critical race theory. Oh, it's being taught through K through 12. No, it's not. No, it's a college-level graduate course. Or they talk about woke corporations, which I have a problem with, because woke corporations, they're still doing the things that are negative to the planet. Not paying their workers, polluting, getting tax cuts, and supporting, reactionary conservative politicians. That's not the problem they have with woke corporations. So they have the problem with the actual wokeness. And then, of course, you got Dr. Seuss, immigrant caravans, crime. Look at all the crime. Chicago. And then, of course, they literally are now telling people not to get vaccinated because, as he mentioned, all the problems with the vaccine. Okay, what's the problem with the vaccine? I mean, look, one of the vaccines that had the major issue was the J&J, the Janssen, right? The one shot. Turns out the issue in the Janssen was actually incredibly rare. And so adverse reactions to the vaccines are quite rare. People get hospitalized who have the adverse reactions and then usually get released within the day. So it's not quite as serious. In fact, they have people standing by. If you have anaphylactic shock, that's one of the adverse reactions. The vaccine site that I went to, for example, had an ambulance sitting by. And so there it is. Now, as far as deaths attributed to the vaccine, they're also incredibly rare. So now, according to the numbers, according to the CDC, more than 339 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine were administered in the United States from December 14th to 2020 through July 19th, 2021. So now, I'm going to give you some numbers here, and there's some caveats that go along with this, okay? So now, there is something called the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or the VAERS. So they said that they had received 6,207 reports of deaths among people who received a COVID-19 vaccine. So now, VAERS, that system is entirely non-scientific and based on self-reporting and not an accurate measure of actual deaths from the COVID-19 vaccine, okay? Nonetheless, if you're to take those numbers, right, then, all right, 6,207 out of what? What was it? 339 million doses is an approximate death rate, assuming these numbers are correct, of about 0.0018%. Now, the FDA does require healthcare providers to report any death after COVID-19 vaccination to VAERS, even if it is unclear that the vaccine was the cause. So, again, the caveats with the VAERS, okay? And I'll get into that in more detail when I talk about the next segment. So now, if you're to, again, to take those numbers here, okay, and compare it to back before we had the vaccines, when conservatives were telling us, oh, 99% survival rate. That means I don't need to wear a mask. We don't need to shut down. Open it all up. 99% survival rate. You'll be fine. These same people are now freaking out about a 0.0018% possibly death rate from the COVID-19 vaccine. Does that make any sense? No, it's ridiculous. Now you might be thinking, well, okay, maybe they don't know how to do math. No, it's political for them. Understand that it's political. And here's the thing. They've been saying, oh, the virus, it's the virus that has become political. They politicize this virus. No. Here's the thing. For one, the virus doesn't care if you're a Marxist or a lib or boogaloo boy. It's going to get you if it's going to get you. It will infect you if you let it, and sometimes it'll infect you, though rarely, even if you take all the different precautions. That said, it will, if you get the vaccine, you're much less likely to get it and much less likely to end up seriously ill in the hospital or dead. So, but anyway, the whole point here is saying it's political is actually projection, because you got hardcore conservatives that have created this as a litmus test, an identity around not wearing a mask and not getting a vaccine. And that's it. It's complete and utter reactionary bullshit. And this is despite all their different heroes, by the way. Donald Trump, who got vaccinated. Tucker Carlson. Laura Ingraham. Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity's openly saying, oh, I believe in science, get vaccinated. Even with all of them, which, by the way, Fox News has a literal vaccine passport to get into the building. You have to be vaccinated to get into the Fox News building. And yet, hardcore conservatives are still saying no. No, I'm a true conservative. I'm a true patriot. And if you tell me that it's, if you say that I should probably do something, and you offer it to me for free, I'm going to be completely skeptical about it. I'm going to do the opposite, actually. I'm going to not get a vaccine. I'm going to not wear a mask because fuck you, that's why. Freedom. The other thing that I hear too is, well, it's not safe yet. It hasn't been approved by the FDA. You think they're suddenly going to change their minds once the FDA approves it? I'm already reading articles where you have the FDA that's looking to approve it by the end of August. You think that's going to sway these people? The people who don't trust the government at all? You think they're waiting breathlessly on the FDA? No. Later on, when that happens, they're going to go, nope, still not getting it. I'm still not getting it. They're going to move the goalposts because that's what they do. It's not about the science. It's not about facts. It's all political for them. And that's it. And by the way, it doesn't help that there are people out there that are still drilling misinformation in other people's heads and spreading ridiculous conspiracy theories about the vaccine. People, of course, like Charlie Kirk, who we're going to go to next. So let's do that. Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk is now speculating that vaccines have killed or could kill over 1 million people. Interesting. Now, this happened on his Wednesday show where he had talked about reports of people dying after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. So now, context, these numbers are reported by the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS. So he's going to use these VAERS numbers to try to make his point. But first, let me tell you, out of around 330 million, about 339 million vaccines, you had about 6,000 deaths that were reported to VAERS. Now, the CDC's VAERS website says, VAERS accepts and analyzes reports of possible health problems, also called adverse events, after vaccination. Now, VAERS is actually an incredibly important tool to, see if people are reporting having these adverse reactions. In fact, it's used as an early warning system. That said, there are caveats with this. VAERS cannot prove that a vaccine caused a problem. Specifically, a VAERS report does not mean that a vaccine caused an adverse event. However, VAERS can give the CDC and FDA important information. If it looks as though a vaccine might be causing a problem, the FDA and CDC will then investigate further and take action if needed. And you could see that, of course, from their actions with the Janssen vaccine. However, as you're going to see, Charlie Kirk is going to do some alternative math to make it seem like this vaccine is dangerous and even deadlier than coronavirus. Take a look.
So as we've been talking about throughout this entire hour, the new VAERS data, according to the CDC website, VAERS is a public portal that you can plug into. The Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System shows that there is as many as 12,313 deaths after getting the vaccine. We've also gone into detail about how the VAERS and the FDA, according to this study of the Electronic Support for Public Health Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, shows that it really might only reflect 1%. So, if VAERS is off by 99%, that would mean 1.2 million people died after getting the vaccine. If VAERS is off by 90%, that means that, make sure I get my math right here. That's right. If VAERS is only calculating 10%, that means 123,000 people died. Is that right, Connor? Yeah, 1.2 million. That's right. 1.2 million actually would be, yeah, that's right. More than double the number of people who have died from COVID in the U.S. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that according to how we calculate VAERS, by the independent study that was administered, this could be true. So where are our elected leaders looking into this? Why are our leaders all of a sudden peddling the vaccine? What's behind this?
What the fuck? Okay, so I'm not saying it's true, but it could kill 1 million people. And so you're passing it off, though. You're saying, oh, yeah, I don't think it's true. Or I don't know if it's true. But it could be true. I mean, it could kill 1 million people. It could be worse than the virus. So you might not want to take the vaccine. Wow. All right. So now let me give you some more background information of where he's getting all this bullshit, and then go and correct him. For one, Charlie Kirk is going off a Twitter thread. Reliable source of information. This is from, and I forget who. I know, right? But they said CDC has quietly more than doubled the number of COVID vaccine death reports in VAERS, the federal side effect reporting system. CDC now says it's received reports of 12,313 deaths following COVID vaccination in the U.S., compared to under 6,000 last week. So now I went to the CDC website, and I did not see that. So maybe I missed it. I don't know. But this person says, oh no, that's what the CDC says, 12,000 deaths. Now, further on, they go to say, the new figure means CDC has now received more reports of deaths following COVID vaccination than all other vaccines combined in the 30-year history of VAERS. It is not clear why more than 6,000 death reports were added to VAERS in a week. Maybe the CDC director can explain. And then he added some context. VAERS is updated weekly. In 2021, it had a massive backlog because it was not built to handle anything like the number of COVID vaccine reports it gets. Again, that's conjecture. But it's always appeared to prioritize death reports, which have risen fairly steadily at 300 a week. We don't know at this point why the number of death reports in the system doubled in a week. Probably the answer is not a new surge of deaths, but older deaths being added to the system. But given VAERS' importance as a monitoring mechanism, the CDC must explain quickly. Furthermore, if the answer is not a surge of death, the bump is arguably worse for the CDC, since it will raise questions about whether they have been misleading people about the overall safety profile of the vaccines for months. If deaths are this backlogged, how about other events? So now right there, that whole thread, and this is where Charlie Kirk got his information, is saying that this is an official death toll from people who had gotten the vaccine. That the VAERS reporting system is what they officially go off when talking about adverse reactions and the deaths related to those adverse reactions from these vaccines. Not going to surprise you, but that's complete and utter bullshit. So I've got a simple answer to all of that. It turns out that the VAERS reporting system, according to the CDC, they note that because VAERS allows anyone to report possible side effects from vaccine, it includes reports that might or might not be caused by vaccines. VAERS is not designed to identify cause and effect. VAERS reports alone cannot be used to determine if a vaccine caused or contributed to an adverse event or illness. Some reports may contain information that is incomplete, inaccurate, coincidental, or unverifiable. Most reports to VAERS they add are voluntary, which means they could be subject to biases. Data from VAERS reports should always be interpreted with these limitations in mind. So that the CDC itself and the explanation of what the VAERS system actually does completely undermines their entire argument. They've got nothing. So now I'm gonna say this at the risk of being labeled a conspiracy theorist. But what if? Follow me on this one, right? What if conservatives are self-reporting in order to inflate the number of reports to make it look like the vaccine is less safe, to basically back up what they've been saying for all this time? That, oh, the vaccine, unsafe. Look at how many side effects there are. Oh, look at VAERS. But VAERS is, again, unverifiable because it's all self-reporting. Now, if you don't know that, and you see these numbers, you're like, oh man, look at that increase. Oh my God, it doubled. This vaccine is super unsafe. Oh my God. But no, it's all self-reporting. So it means almost nothing. So I know it sounds crazy, right? But this is the kind of thing that I could see hardcore MAGA chuds and anti-vaxxers do, to just go and self-report bullshit death reports. Oh yeah, my grandma's cousin's mom's daughter and their kid died from COVID-19. And that's a report to VAERS. That's it. Now, why do I believe that is possible, if not even likely? Well, again, I don't know for sure. Again, unverifiable. But let me give you an example of some of the dishonest shit conservatives have done before. So you've all heard of crisis pregnancy centers, for example, right? This is where conservatives or activists will dress up as doctors and nurses in order to trick vulnerable pregnant women that are considering abortion into not having those abortions, and they do so by lying to them. They'll say things like that are, verifiably not true, that, oh, abortions will make you infertile. Abortions will give you cancer. Stuff like that. So they'll say this kind of stuff in order to get you to trick you into, going forward with a pregnancy that you don't want. So that's just one example of conservatives, again, fudging numbers to meet or to do their ideological goal. So for me, I think, well, why wouldn't they want to fudge these adverse reaction reports in order to fit their narrative? And again, I'm not saying they are, but they got pretty good reason to. But as long as you know how VAERS actually works, then you're at an advantage and you're not going to fall for that. So if you end up seeing some insane spike in those VAERS reports, like what they're talking about right now, and guaranteed, you've already seen it on Tucker Carlson, you've already seen it as Charlie Kirk, it'll probably be on Newsmax pretty soon, if not already, but no actual reporting anywhere else, then chances are it's fake. And here's why. Here's the thing about the vaccine and why they're safe. For one, rich people have already taken the vaccine. You think rich people are going to take something that aren't safe? Ridiculous, right? No, they value their lives over everything else. But hey, here's the other thing, which makes a little bit more sense. These companies, well, they want to put out a safe vaccine, right? Not because they want to, just because they want to like help people or anything like that. You think big pharmaceutical companies care about like helping regular people? If they did, they would actually make things like insulin free. But no, what they do is that they want to put out a good vaccine because it's good for the brand. It's good for the stocks, the stock market. It's good for their income. It's good for their future government contracts. It comes down to economics, baby. And understand, a good example of what happens when you put out a vaccine that has had some questions is Johnson & Johnson. Their stocks have been hurt. Their revenue has been hurt because their vaccine had some bad press. Now, there were some issues with some documented negative reactions. In fact, the CDC and the FDA have received reports of people who had got the Janssen vaccine of getting Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is, of course, a rare disorder in which the body's immune system damages nerve cells, causing muscle weakness, and even sometimes paralysis. Now, the good news is that most people recover from GBS, although some end up having permanent nerve damage. So that's not good, right? But that said, I want to give you these numbers, which I think is really, really important context. Some 12.8 million Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine doses were administered. There were only about 100 preliminary reports of GBS identified as of July 12th. Again, this is in VAERS, this is with the self-reporting, so there could be more, there could be less. But generally, what you have from the numbers is 100 cases out of 12.8 million. That's an incredibly small amount. But since there were 100 VAERS reports was enough to get the CDC and the FDA to put a halt on the Janssen vaccine and say, whoa, we need to investigate this because we don't think that this is safe enough. Understand that this is a great example of the system actually working and what VAERS was generally designed to do. The fact that it hasn't caught these other, vaccine doses or vaccine like the Pfizer, Moderna and all that is because generally they're considered to be safe. And there it is. So ironically, and here's the thing, right? So the government and these companies, they take this safety incredibly seriously because it looks really bad if they don't. It's not so much that they care about us, regular people. They do care about their brand. They do care about their profits, obviously. And so in reality, this is kind of like a free market thing at play. It's the market at work, along with government. And so now, Charlie Kirk, are you saying you don't believe in the market? I thought you did. Conservatives? Do you believe in the markets? Here's what Charlie Kirk is. He's a clown. And the irony here is, by the way, You remember Turning Point USA, their co-founder, the guy that founded along with Charlie Kirk, Bill Montgomery. You remember that guy? Well, he died from COVID-19 almost a year ago, actually. July 9th, 2020 is when he passed away from, as I said before, complications related to COVID-19. And yet here's Charlie Kirk, who is still railing against a vaccine that, had it been available, could have saved that man's life. Truly despicable behavior. Truly. So, there you go. Moving on. A second here. I just want to give a couple of shout outs to people before I dive into the next segment. Jen Baker, 3240, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Appreciate that. Northern Ice Dragon, thank you for resubbing with Prime. Appreciate that. Tumbles25, thank you for the cheering of the 300 bits. And also for resubbing at tier 1. Appreciate that. Let's go over here to YouTube and see if there's anything going on. Let's see. I'm going to have to go and check that. Give me a minute here. Let's see. Awkward, I know. I always forget to have this set up before I go, but thank you, S. Porp Girl, for the very kind $5. Appreciate that. All right. That said, let's go to MAGAcoin. It's one of the best stories. I absolutely love it. Republicans eager to dive into the Trump-aligned cryptocurrency, MAGAcoin, got a rude wake-up call when the website affiliated with the MAGAcoin suffered a fairly significant data breach. Turns out more than 1,000 people, including Republican leaders and conservative media personalities who had signed up for this pro-Trump cryptocurrency, might have had their personal data released. Poor security on the website associated with the cryptocurrency exposed users' personal information, including passwords and IP addresses, and revealed that the vast majority of the MAGAcoin produced has actually gone to its self-described creator, Mark Zelenka, a Trump-loving consultant, and super PAC associated with him, according to The Guardian. So, fun times. Hey, it turns out if you like privacy, you might not want to invest in MAGAcoin. Turns out, it's kind of a mess. Disaster. So now a self-described hacktivist shared the website's data with The Guardian, showing that most users had about 100 MAGAcoins, but at least some of them have taken advantage of the offer of 1,000 free MAGAcoins to give to certain radio hosts, media personalities, bloggers, and groups who agree to promote the cryptocurrency. For example, you have radio personality John Rush, who has 1,500 MAGAcoins. Ooh, very nice. According to leaked data, and had hosted Zelenka, whose Colorado-based used car company CarMart applied for a trademark for the currency and administers a Facebook page for it. Fun. It's fun. So now, if that's not convoluted enough, you have Zelenka, who apparently had that, but then somehow says, oh no, I don't actually control MAGAcoin. That's somebody else's baby. Okay. So now he said that he handed off the project to pro-Trump political operative Riley O'Neill, who appears to control super PAC funded in part by the cryptocurrency, MAGAcoin, intended to support MAGA candidates all across the country. And let me get into more detail about this. So O'Neill has a political consulting firm named Tidewater Strategies. And apparently they had gifted 10 million MAGAcoins to a victory fund that appears to be controlled by the same North Carolina-based GOP operative, while another 2 million MAGAcoins had apparently come from an account that appears to be controlled by Zelenka, who no longer apparently controls MAGAcoin. So it's very confusing here. O'Neill, by the way, has worked on the losing campaign for accused pedophile Judge Roy Moore, and he reportedly has a stake in the conspiracy website Big League Politics. So there's a lot going on here. Okay. Now, his Tidewater Strategies was also paid for by pro-Trump Republican candidates. I'm sorry, they had paid pro-Trump candidates in the last cycle. However, most of those candidates had lost. So now I have a lot of questions. Apparently, I don't know who the hell's running this. Who's running this? What are they doing? What's going on? How much is a MAGAcoin even worth? I have no idea. What I do know is that with any cryptocurrency, if you invest in it, be prepared to lose money. And that goes with, Dogecoin, Bitcoin, MAGAcoin, whatever kind of coin that they come up with. And you can come up with anything. Really, honestly, there's nothing stopping me from creating Jeff Coin, right? Like, all I have to do is, I don't know, sign up for it or whatever, and I can start minting Jeff coins. So it doesn't make any sense. And so, obviously, this seems like a grift to me. Now, what's interesting here is you've got this pro-Trump conservative using Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," in order to try to make money somehow. All right, well, and now here we have that same person that, has all this MAGAcoin or minting it or creating it or mining it or whatever they do, that is then trying to give the MAGAcoin to Republican candidates. So now, how much of it goes to the candidates themselves? How much of it goes to super PACs? How much of it is going to consulting firms like, I don't know, Tidewater Strategies? And so it gets really hard, since it is cryptocurrency, to track where all this alleged money is going. And so all I can tell you from that is that I'm sure at some point somebody is getting paid, and it's probably not the people that the money was intended for, and certainly not the people that have signed up and that have invested in MAGAcoin. Now, the other interesting thing here is the website itself. The whole point, like the whole idea of the data breach, the fact that it happened. So now, how many times am I going to have to report on a conservative website, pro-Trump aligned, getting hacked or having some data breach because they suck at doing security, and created an easily hackable site? I already talked about Gitter. They got it. Frank's speech, the Mike Pillow guy, his site also data breach. Oops. Because, they don't know how to do security. They don't know anything about web security at all. And so they don't know about the cyber, on and on. That's why these conservative websites don't last. Although I'm sure somebody makes a little bit of money in the meantime before it shuts down. It's a bit of a grift. But so overall, they don't know how to build websites, much less secure the websites. Donald Trump himself didn't know how to do anything. Thought he could build a social media platform, ended up making a blog that lasted a couple of months. And I still haven't seen his new social media project. So any day now. They're bad at this. And again, this is going to end up failing, of course, in spectacular fashion. It has already begun. And once it fails, it'll be quickly forgotten, and they'll move on to the next one. So overall, MAGAcoin, stay the hell away from it. That's all I have to say. All right. One more here. There are lots of winning going on. Very much winning. The Five's Jesse Waters has a solution for dealing with climate change. Just get used to it.
What solves the climate? How should he be focused on this, Jesse? Which I think we can. I hope there's agreement that the temperatures are rising and that we've got to deal with our climate issues. So how should he be dealing with this?
Well, he could use Skype. Harold, I got his itinerary so far from becoming envoy. He's been to London, Brussels, and Paris, then went to Shanghai and Seoul, Abu Dhabi, New Delhi, Dhaka, Rome, London again, Berlin, Middle East, North Africa, London again, Moscow. Just right there, that's more than like a city's emissions if you just cut out the jet flights. And do you really think the Chinese and these Middle Eastern oil kingdoms are going to listen to John Kerry and stop fossil fuels? Come on, man. He's just in it for the luxury travel. If you want to stop climate change, you don't fight climate change. If it's getting warmer, you adapt to it. Let's just say the sea levels rise a couple inches over the next century, Harold. Okay. It's a great civilization we have here. I think we can adapt to that. The Netherlands, 25% below sea level. They're like a powerhouse in Europe. They didn't just destroy their economy to fight the rise in the sea levels right there. They built reservoirs and kind of adjusted around the coastline, and they're fine. They didn't have to break the bank to do it.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. Okay. First of all, just that little bit at the beginning, I thought that was important to leave in because he's reading off the different places that John Kerry flew to. Like, they did the meme, right? We should improve society somewhat. But you participate in society. I'm very intelligent. They did the meme. They always do the meme. And they don't realize it. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But all right. So now onto the substance. Climate change, just adapt. I mean, it's fine. No, the problem with climate change is that it's happening too fast for human beings, and not just human beings, by the way, but for the ecosystems, animals, plants to adapt. That's the problem. Our entire food chain is kind of on the precipice here. If that collapses, we collapse. You can't really adapt if your entire food chain collapses and you can no longer feed 7 billion people. Okay? So that's the problem with climate change. It's not a simple situation of just, why don't we just adapt to it? Well, again, climate has, and conservatives are more than happy to point this out, well, climate's always been changing. Yeah, it has. But it changes slowly when it comes to geologic time. And so when you have those slow, gradual changes, yes, that makes it so that some species can adapt. You realize that the dinosaurs went extinct because their climate changed after, of course, the asteroid strike. It changed the climate, for one, also blocked out the sun, all that damage. And so part of that eventual extinction was climate change. And of course, climate change has been responsible in some fashion or another for several of the extinctions that have happened on this planet. And so we're trying to make sure that that doesn't actually happen. And so that said, we are facing some pretty dire predictions here of what can happen in just the next 100 years if we continue to change the climate at the rate that we are by putting carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. And so that said, I just adapt to it. It'll be fine. So let's get to the example of the Netherlands, right? So, wow, oh my gosh, he's actually using a European country. Obviously, well, Netherlands must be fantastic, and they didn't have to break their bank, right? Those Dutch, yeah, they didn't have to do a whole lot about climate change. They're doing great. They got it. No, actually, they don't. They're actually doing pretty terrible when it comes to climate change. They're at risk of catastrophic flooding from sea level rise. And let me give you the details. The Dutch government is basically right now destroying farmland to give it back to the sea. Now, let me give you an example of one of those communities. There was a farming community called Noordwoudpolder. And so I apologize. I can't, I'm not really good with Dutch. But anyway, let me read this. This is from Politico back in 2019, a report. Once a thriving farmland area, Noordwoud is now an expanse of reedy marshlands in the southwest Netherlands, deliberately designed to flood in order to keep nearby Dutch cities dry. And understand that they've been doing this for centuries, right? So creating polders, doing dikes and dams and irrigation, because they are fairly low when it comes to sea level. And so they've had to get really creative. Unfortunately, now with sea level rise on the horizon as a result of climate change, there's not a whole lot more that they can actually do if you have the catastrophic amounts of sea level rise that we are expecting from climate change. That said, Dutch several years ago, back to the article, when you came to that polder, big nice farms were there, acres with potatoes and onions, said Stan Vlierakers, a dairy farmer who lived nearby. Now when you drive there, there's nothing left of it. The Noordwoudpolder was one of 39 such areas selected for the Dutch government's Room for the River program, in which land was given back to the water. It's a modern reversal of the centuries-old practice of land reclamation by the famously low-lying country. So now you could say, oh, but that proves Jesse's point. They're adapting. No, what they're doing is they're literally losing their country back to the sea after decades of claiming the land from the sea. So they're having net losses. That's actually economically disastrous for the Netherlands, especially the more that you have to do it. And now what's important here is that they lost a bunch of farmland. Well, now they're producing less food. You produce less food, you actually have to import more food to make up for it. And by the way, here's the other thing. The Netherlands isn't just adapting, right? In fact, as a result of the warnings of climate change, you had the Dutch government laying out plans in 2019 to reduce the Netherlands' greenhouse gas emissions by 49% by 2030, compared to the 1990 levels, and a 95% reduction by 2050. So they have some pretty major goals for them that they want to do. Now, they actually have a long way to hit those goals. Unlike their neighbors, the Netherlands actually has an economy that is based, or I should say an energy mix that is based mostly on natural gas, which comprises probably pretty close to 50% or half of their, and I'm kind of spitballing the numbers here, about half of their energy mix is from that. The next highest was oil, and then coal, and they have actually an incredibly small amount of renewable energy within their energy mix. In fact, here, compared to its fellow EU member states, the Netherlands comes at an embarrassing low 26th position in terms of the share of renewables in the energy mix. Back in 2014, for example, only about 5.5% of the Netherlands' energy was generated sustainably. Out of the 28 EU countries, only Malta and Luxembourg performed worse. And so now they've got a lot of catching up to do. So I wouldn't exactly hold them up as a bastion of adaptation, especially now when they're looking to spend about $6 billion in trying to reduce their carbon emissions, which for a country that small, understand $6 billion here is almost nothing for the United States government. But for the government of the Netherlands, well, I mean, that's a significant amount of investment. So that said, it's either spend money on the mitigation or you're going to sink. That's what they're facing right now. And so, look, unless you can grow a pair of gills, you're not going to be able to live underwater or have an economy underwater. And losing a big part of your country underwater would be devastating. And that's exactly what's going to happen by the end of the century if they do nothing. But people like Jesse Waters, they don't give a goddamn about that. He's just out there saying, just did that. I mean, yeah, we're sure we kind of fucked up, but let's not do anything about it. What do you expect from Fox News? All right. So, there you go. That's the show for today. I'm Christina. Thank you for the very kind 95 bits. Everybody, go follow Christina here on Twitch. Go to that channel. Yeah, follow that channel. She's incredibly based. So, all right. That said, we're done with the show. Hopefully you all had fun with the disastrous news of the day. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very, very helpful if you do so. All right, so anyway, thank you. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. We'll see you later. You have a good day.
Amazing. Please clap. There's insanity in the control room. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.